Hey everybody, welcome to CBR. I'm Sal here at New York Comic Con 2022, and I'm talking to Greg Capullo. Greg, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me on your show. Thank you.
Oh, well, it's not my show. It's CBR's show.
Well,
But,
we're going to make it your show and make you the big shot
every
at
time
this
I come
moment
on
in
the
time.
show, yeah, that's right.
It's
that's
his
right.
show.
No, actually, it's your show.
Okay, it's my show. It's my show. So don't mess it up.
I'll try.
All right.
Looking back at your body of work, I've noticed that you tend to like stick around for a run. Like you never just like bomb in on a book and then it's like, oh, Greg was here and then you're out. Is that how you prefer to tackle like a series, or is that like kind of just how it worked out?
I'll tell you why. And Joe Quesada doesn't like that I lay down roots just as deep as I do, because it didn't end up being at Marvel for as long. But but I said from the get-go that I wouldn't do something, that wasn't like a mini-series, like a monthly book. I wouldn't do it for less than a year, because one of the things I didn't like as a fan was I knew who my favorite artists were, and that's who I collected, right? I didn't care about who wrote it.
Of course.
It was my favorite artists. Those were I chased. And so, I looked forward to those books off the stand, and then when you'd open up and it wasn't them, it's like, oh, crushing, oh, this is horrible. And so I, having experienced that, I didn't want fans to experience that by my doing.
Yeah.
And so, when I did Quasar, I'm going to go on for at least a year, and then when I got X-Force, Todd tried to get me off X-Force while I was still running through X-Force, and I said, no, I got to do at least, a year's run on that, and Spawn was like 10 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And it worked out to be about 10 or 11 years on Batman. With the deal with that, I mean, I was having a great time working with Todd on Spawn, so there was really no real desire to do anything else. And
well, it was like the #1 book for so many years.
For the first 5 years, it was always in the top 5, I think it was, if I recall. But working with Todd was great and everything. And then, I switched gears for different reasons. I married my current wife, Jamie, who I've known since I was 7. It was my first crush. And she came with kids. And at the time, the youngest was 6. And I was doing Haunt with Robert Kirkman at McFarlane's joint. And I couldn't share my work with him because, it's so much gore, because, Kirkman loves that gore. And so I go, I can't even share the work with him. And plus, I can make more money if I go into the mainstream. And so I approached Marvel, and for the first time ever approached DC. I'd never approached DC in my whole life to get a job. And I said, I'm available. And so I ended up on Batman. And the reason I stayed there, I mean, it's just like it kept going well, and the fans kept saying, yeah, we like it, and the stories are working, the relationship between Scott and I, we're working, and so there's no reason to try and get off of Gilligan's Island.
Damn right.
So,
so not when it's paying off with stuff like Court of Owls.
Yeah, and Scott dresses up like Ginger once in a while and change things up, Marianne occasionally. So it's all, it's good.
Keep things fresh. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What sort of hallmarks of a run or a book now kind of appeal to you? What's the things that kind of like draw you in? Is it the all ages kind of thing? Like, is it something that like more kids can get into, or is it something that's just like, what is the thing that makes you go, oh, I got to do that?
The things that I want to work on. Well, I'll tell you, a funny thing is, people think I'm like this horror guy, and they say, oh, and Greg, he must have been a horror guy. He does so well. And it's like, I've never been the horror guy, ever. The first gig I ever did was for a book called Gore Street, but that was a local publisher, and that was the first opportunity to draw a comic book, so I took it.
Right.
And but I always was, a superhero, the tights and capes and, that sort of guy. And then it just so happened I went to work with Todd, and it got me down that road, and I did pretty good at it, I'm told. And so, and then I go, oh, now I'm going even worse with Haunt. And so I go, oh, when I'm going mainstream, it'd be great. I'll get back to the superhero stuff. And then they paired me with a horror writer, Scott Snyder. So it's just like it's not really my thing. But like I plan on doing some work with Marvel Comics.
No kidding.
That's how I grew up. That's all those heroes is what really made me chase comics and want to be a comic artist. So any of that stuff would make me happy, I love all that stuff. The Fantastic Four, the Avengers, Thor, Spider-Man, all of it. Hulk, every bit of it. Just so any of that stuff. You could blindfold on me, give me a dart, and put all the Marvel characters on the wall, and let me throw it, and I'll be happy pretty much. Yeah.
That actually feeds into one of my questions, because I was going to say, you've basically drawn, thanks to the Metal Wars, the entire DC Pantheon. Like, you've drawn every character from Mr. Terrific, Plastic Man, like everybody, even if you hadn't had anything to do with their books. You've drawn every single DC character under the sun. Are there any characters, I guess Marvel or DC, that are kind of like, oh man, but if I could get a shot at that character,
Yeah.
That would make me happy.
Well, first off, that was an eye-opener because I didn't really buy very many DC comics growing up. So all these characters I was unaware of.
You're just seeing the names and you're going, uh-oh.
Yeah, so they'd send me folders of files, you know.
Oh, good.
So I could see the costumes and everything like that. So it was only during those metal projects that I learned that, hey, DC has, you know, a lot of cool characters too. I was just unaware of them, you know.
Yeah.
And so, but I think the one that would be a grand slam for me is Lobo. I mean, you know, I'm sort of like Lobo. So, you know, and all that subject matter, I think I'd do a smashing job on somebody like Lobo.
Space aliens, hogs, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think I could do pretty well on that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there any projects that you had when you've been working at DC that you were like, you had some reservations about until you actually got into the nitty gritty and you were like, oh, actually, this is pretty dope?
No, you know, Scott's always given good stories. The biggest hurdles were always, you know, Scott didn't realize how hard he was working me and the rest of the art team. So 0 year was murder. I mean, straight up murder. And we all were grateful just to survive it. Yeah. So, but I didn't know that up front, that it would be murder. So I never had reservations. You know, Scott is a good writer and puts together great stories that have a lot of layering to them and things like that. So no, I never went, oh, I don't know about that one. It always sounded like fun to me, you know. And Scott would always kind of pitch it to me before he pitched it to them. What do you think about doing that? So yeah, there's nothing that he's ever pitched to me where I said, no, I don't think so. Yeah.
Well, and your collaboration with Scott Snyder has evolved over the years as well, because I know that he used to be very like detail-oriented, scripted, and as we talked earlier on this channel here, the fact that with you and Todd and your collaboration on Batman Spawn, like you guys are kind of doing more of like a Marvel method kind of approach, where it's like, hey, what do you think would be cool? What do you want to draw? What do you want to see? Has that kind of evolved with your relationship with Scott as well?
Oh, definitely Scott has gotten more out of my way over the years, you know. And Scott told him a long time, or Todd told Scott a long time ago, if you want to get the best out of Greg, get out of Greg's way.
Yeah.
Because, you know, because I was raised from the Marvel guys, you know, John Romita Sr., Jim Shooter, Larry Hama, all these guys showed me the ropes. And so I learned how to take a 4 to 6 page plot with evocative writing and turn that into a 22-page story, you know, pace it out, direct it, all that stuff. Yeah. So, you know, if you want to give me more than that, you're not really utilizing my skill set.
Right.
You can just get a draftsperson to do that, you know, so yeah, you don't need that. And I don't thrive under that condition because I was raised the way I was raised. Yeah. And so I have the director's eye and all that, and so, you know, I really don't like somebody trying to tell me what to do. I like to say, you know, the day a writer can tell me what to put in the panel is the same day I get to tell him what to put in the word balloon.
Yeah, there you
go. He's not going to go for that, so, you know, right? So back off. So working with Todd, I mean, we're just like, you know, it would horrify writers to know
the process.
Todd, yeah, especially with this with Spawn Batman. I mean, he's been giving me the story piecemeal. Hey, Todd, you know, I finished those pages. I'm going to need a couple more pages, at least by tomorrow. And the email would come in, and I have a couple more pages so I can progress forward. And he'd have the overall blueprint, but not the overall picture where we're going to really get it done. But that's how we've always worked, you know, just and on Spawn back in the day, you know, if we were running late on time, well, that changed the story. All of a sudden, you know, it's real dark, and, you know, in the scene, you know, there's a lot of shadows. So
you know, I do remember a couple of those big, dark, fun and splashes of color, some text balloons, you know, just kind of.
You know what? You know, they were artistic stylings, so they don't look like cheats, but they're us cheating, but making it look cool.
I fell for it.
Hey, if it's done right, you know, that's it. You know, less can be more.
That's true. That's true. I had a question because you've been tweeting out some of your pencil work on Batman Spawn, but also a little bit of your Creech work.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on Creech a little bit because the first exposure I had to Creech was as an action figure back in '98. And so I thought we'd talk a little bit about that. Just really quick, I wanted to ask, like, what can you share about the like revival / wrap up to the Creech?
Well, first off, I had the third installment planned after I finished the second one, which I think was Out for Blood. And but then I took on Batman, so it went back into a drawer for 11 years. So I was ready to run with it back then. And so this is the culmination of the story that I started, which, by the way, after the first one, Rage Against Death, I planned on that character being dead at the end of that issue, at the end of that arc. And then fans were going, oh, we want more, right? So I go, oh, okay, I found a way to bring him back, you know, right? And did the second arc. And in this final arc, I do have the intention of finishing him off.
Okay.
But so it's, you know, what I'm thinking of the title would be Final Stand, the Creech, the Final Stand.
Gotcha.
Or something like that. And it's going to be 110 pages. I'm just going to put it out as one big fat book. I figured it goes cool, right? You got the Creech is big, the book is big.
Yeah.
You know, and then, but before that, because a lot of people, some people I found out weren't aware that a second arc had come out.
Right.
And so I'm gonna package 1 and 2 in a collected version and release that when I think I'm closer to the finish line.
Yeah.
And then people could be caught up, even though I'm writing it in a way that if you've never read it, you could still be kind of along with what's going on with this character, what's this about.
Totally.
For the person who will never see anything other than it, I think I've tried to make it stand on its own. So that's it. I don't want to give too much away yet, other than I think at the end this will be the end of him.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
I thought I'd ask because we've been talking a little bit about your pencil work and Spawn Batman. I know that you guys have kind of moved to traditional pencil work for the Batman Spawn book. But which
Well, I've always been a traditional pencil.
Now, okay, I wanted to ask, like, what's your preferred way? Do you like digital or traditional? But you're a traditionalist.
Pencil. The only thing I like to do digitally is digitally paint when I get the opportunity. I use Corel Painter most of the time, even though Photoshop has come a long way now. And and there's been instances where I've used some digital inking, because it's easier to just click dump black into an area.
Sure, instead of those X's.
And there's been a couple times where I had a vision that you couldn't really do very easily, so it'd be mixed media. I would do some bits and digitally output it, or vice versa, and so it's a combination of traditional and digital. And maybe I want a special texture or whatever. Like the third cover from our Batman run, I gifted that to Scott. And that all the texture on the suits, I mean, that was a digital trick with a special brush. I couldn't. There's no way to pull that off. Really.
Yeah.
So when I have a vision, sometimes, but it's mostly traditional is what I love.
Cool, because I remember back reading your run on Spawn and seeing a lot of fun, like interesting, and at the time cutting-edge digital trickery that was being used, like little Photoshop effects that even today I'm kind of like, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, well that was all Brian Haberlin, who's I call him the Wizard of the West Coast, man. That cat knows all about that digital world. I mean, he's crazy good. Yeah. And he's a fine artist himself now. I follow him on Instagram. He's putting up these amazing watercolor portraits every day, and he's great.
Yeah.
He's great. Yeah.
So we've got Batman Spawn. We've got teases of the Creech. What's next in 2023 from Greg Capullo?
Right. Well, I mean, along with this stuff, I've started already. I just have to get the high-res scans. I want to do sort of a retrospect on my career with artwork, and I've got all the text written, so I hope for that to come out relatively soon. As soon as I'm done with the Spawn Batman, awesome. I'll get on the horse of scanning all the high-res files to put that together. I'm also simultaneously chipping away at a how-to-draw book, and going to try and impart as much of the stuff as I can remember that I was taught. I'm sure I've forgotten plenty over all these years.
You can pull your old column from Wizard Magazine.
Yeah, it'll be along those lines. Simply understood things. I want it to be something that everybody can, not labor to understand, and can, because that's one of the things they liked about it. I simplified understanding those things in the Wizard crash course, it was called.
The crash course. I remember that you had a whole element about like perspective.
Yeah.
Like I remember this one sequence where it's like in a detective's office, and it's like you gotta put the camera where you can't normally put the camera. So like between the fan blades of a ceiling fan.
Right. One of the points.
That's just like having that dynamic element, and it's always been an element of a hallmark of your writing, or your art, I should say.
Thank you. Well, I'm not an originator. You could look at the old spaghetti westerns and all that. Film directing.
Good, Bad, and Ugly. Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, that's comics really on film. It's really there's no better example of it.
Yeah, right.
But I've also come up with a creator-owned idea that Scott's really cool on, called instead of reboot, it's called rebot, and so we might do that next. And as I said, though, I have intentions of doing something with Marvel, and Scott's like, yeah, I'm with you. And I'm like, maybe I don't want to do something with someone else for a minute, just like you do. You enjoy all this other thing, So I know Donnie Cates, is always after me, and Dan Slott's after me. And CB mentioned something else with another writer, which I'll keep under my vest because whether it happens or not, but that wouldn't take place till next year.
Cool.
So definitely Marvel I see in my future. And even while I'm doing the Creech, I said, CB, I'll do some covers for you in the meantime.
That's great.
And so, I definitely want to do some Marvel work again.
Nice. Well, it's exciting to talk to you. It's exciting to see where we're going, and can't wait to see what's next. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you guys next time here at CBR, of course, here at New York Comic Con 2022. I'm Sal, Greg Capullo. See you next time.
Thank you.